Welcome to Birth at Work, the podcast where we dive into the real, unfiltered stories of what it's actually like to navigate pregnancy, birth, and early parenthood while building a career. I'm your host, Kristlyn Powell. Each episode, we sit down with working parents who share their honest experiences, the victories, the setbacks, the moments of doubt, and the strategies that actually work. Because let's be honest, most workplace policies weren't designed with pregnancy and new parenthood in mind. And it's time we talked about what that really means for the millions of us trying to grow families while growing our careers. We have Molly here today. So excited. Love these episodes where we get to bring on fellow moms who are working and raising kids and able to share their experience about what it's really like behind the scenes. So without further ado, Molly, could you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you and why you're here today?
Absolutely. Thank you, Kristlyn, for having me. My name is Maliana Tupou, but everyone calls me Molly for short. It's just easier. I've been married to the love of my life, best friend for the last 20 years. So we finally hit 20 years last October, which is super exciting. And it feels weird because we still feel like we're newlyweds, like, oh, we just got married, like we're in that young phase, but it's like 20 years just flew by. We have one daughter, so she's our baby. We still call her a baby, even though she'll be turning 18 at the end of this year. It's crazy. I think, Kristlyn, when I first met you, she was probably like 10 or so. But yeah, she's our world, been our world. And I've grew up in a huge, big family, one of 17. So it is kind of weird that I have one child, but I come from, a huge family, one of 17 children. Grew up in the music business, very more just entrepreneur type of lifestyle growing up. So when I got married was when it went more of a traditional, like, corporate pathway, more of a traditional career path. But yeah, that's me. And I currently work in the software industry for the last 10 years. And I'm a product owner for a loyalty company out of St. Petersburg, Florida. So yeah, hopefully that's enough about me.
No, thank you so much, Molly. I feel like one, you're just one of the most genuine people I know. And two, you are just a wealth of information and so talented in everything you do. So I just feel like really, really fortunate to have you on the podcast today and sharing your story. And something that I remember, I'm just going to mention this before we dive in, but when I first started working with Molly, I remember coming in my first day and my manager introducing me to folks. And Molly was one of the first people I met in that particular office. I worked in a couple different office spaces, but I remember you being so kind. And I was just like, wow, she is the nicest person I've ever met. And another thing I remember too is a few weeks in, I think I went to schedule a meeting with you. And I remember seeing a block on your calendar in the mornings for school. I think it was for school drop off with your daughter. And that was something that at the time I was early in my career and I wasn't married yet, not looking to have kids at the moment. I was still kind of like figuring life out, but I just thought it was so cool how you were transparent on your calendar. It was like very clear that during this time, like don't schedule meetings. This is when I'm going to be, making sure that I'm using this time to be a mom. I'm going to go make sure my daughter's at school and that she's taken care of. And I thought it was like really refreshing because at that point in my career, I had not yet seen someone do that on their calendar, which might sound silly, but for me, it was like really big.
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the compliments. That really means so much to me, Kristlyn. And yeah, I remember the first time we met, I think we just connected right away and became really good friends inside and outside of work. But that's so funny that you bring that up because I think I would have not ever thought of that as something that would stick out. But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh, if you're single and I'm a mom, and now I can see how that could be like, oh, she has like times. I might have included my personal calendar with my work calendar, but yeah, I did want to always be transparent. And I think, so I kind of lived life backwards. And what's funny is Google Fiber was actually the first job that I worked at out of college after graduating and being a mom. So we're both like our first time, but in very different phases of life. So it's funny how, yeah, just how that played out.
Yeah, I think back to that as an example. And so like later when I, managed other team members or, had to like take control more of my calendar after I had a baby and was just like trying to get more organized, I didn't have hesitation around that. And it was kind of like an expectation that I communicated to other people too of like, your personal time, whether it's like, hey, block this off to go to the gym if you don't have kids or like, if you have preschool pickup or whatever, like a doctor's appointment. Like we're all human. And so that was like one of the very first times I saw that. And it just stood out to me. So I kept referring back to that example. And I think that's like what we need in a big way. And we'll talk about this in the conversation, but just like examples of other women, of other leaders kind of going before us and saying like, it's okay to be human. This is how we become better people and better professionals. So yeah, I refer back to that. But something small, it made a difference. So
And I'm glad that I included that. I would have never thought that or noticed that. So yeah, that's huge how something small like that could really make a difference.
yeah. Yeah. So jumping in to just a little bit more about you and becoming a mother, I am curious before we dive in, can you share a little bit about like what your perspective was of motherhood, maybe in comparison to like what you experienced with your mom before you actually had your daughter?
Yeah, absolutely. When I looked at motherhood, I was always excited to become a mom. I think it's just the culture. I grew up in a very traditional religious family. Motherhood was always, like it's something you should look forward to. And I did. I really did. I always wanted to be a mom. At the same time, because the type of family environment that I lived in, we weren't a traditional, like, my parents weren't like, you need to go to school. You have to like do all like these academic things. We grew up, music was our livelihood. So it was a very different type of lifestyle, very creative, very artistic. So I knew as much as I wanted to be a mom, I wanted to do just something that I enjoyed and I loved. And I did get that from my mother. She had a lot of children, but she never let it stop her from doing other things like gardening, sewing. If she wanted to travel, she did it. Like she just went. So it just was natural to me to be like, yeah, I can be a mom and I can do whatever else I want to do. So that was my thinking going into motherhood. I knew I wanted to be a mom, but then I knew also that if there was something I wanted to do, I could also do that and not be like, oh, well, I can't because I'm going to be a mom, so I can't, pursue this dream. And then because academics wasn't a focus in my family, I think I was more driven. I was very naturally good in school, so I always wanted to go to school. And because no one in my family had gone to college, my parents, they have, I think, like an equivalent of like elementary level education. None of my siblings, most of them didn't even graduate high school. So I think I was the first like high school graduate with my twin brother. Several of my other siblings did graduate from high school, and then some of them got their GEDs later, but no one had gone to college. So
Wow.
I think just that alone, because no one had ever done it, I was like, I want to do that. Like everyone else is doing it. Like I want to do what, you see in the TV shows and in movies. So that was something I put on my list at like 12 years old, was like, go to college. I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was just go to college. So I kind of went down that path, but it didn't happen until I got married. And so that's where, when I started college, I just had gotten pregnant. And then that's when I'm like, oh, I'm more settled in. I have time. Why don't I just pick up some classes? So I didn't start college till about 24, 25 years old. So I'm going in, by the time I finished my associates, what brought me to Utah was I went to Brigham Young University, and it was very weird because I'm going to like orientation with all these 18-year-olds and I was 28. So it was very like different. But yeah, I just knew I didn't want motherhood to limit me from anything, but I also didn't want my life goals to stop me from being a mom. So I don't know if that makes sense. I just knew it was possible to do both.
Yeah. Yeah. And really cool that you shared the example of your mother who, as you were growing up, because she was a mother, that definition and role didn't define her. Like she's only a mother. That's all she can do is caretake and serve. And so, well, that's not, caretaking is one thing that mothers do, right? Like a million other different roles. But she also was able to carve out time for her personal hobbies and things that she cared about. And so that just really resonates with me of like, again, like we're looking towards the examples of the women that we see that are leading us and what do we take from that? And for you, it was like, well, I can go to school if I want to. Like I can do that because that's something that I want to do. I'm interested in doing that. And I know too, you mentioned that you had your daughter prior to, or well, you said you got pregnant before you went to school, before you enrolled in classes. And so this is all like before working too. So your experience is you had your daughter before you entered the workforce as well. So can you share a little bit about what it was like having that experience as a stay-at-home mom? And also, it sounds like you were also going to school during that time too. And what was it like balancing that? Would you change anything if you could go back or yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, I loved my time being at home with my daughter. I was going to school at the same time. And I tell all my nieces and nephews this too, like, go to school before you become a parent. Cause it was very challenging for me, like just to be a mom, but then I wanted to do school. I think it got harder, once I was, going towards my bachelor's, just the time of way and just trying to, in classes and juggling that. I'm like, man, if I was single, this would just be so much easier. I could really just focus. But when you're a mom, it's like you have to, okay, do the whole morning schedule. Then when they're at school, then you're like, okay, I got to study. Where I felt like if I was single, I could just focus on school. So I've always told my nieces and nephews, like, don't wait. If you can go to school now, get your schooling done with now before you have children. That's something I would do, but I also don't regret, it's just that's the way life played out for me.
Yeah.
I did enjoy, I wanted to make sure I enjoyed being a mom too. So I did not go to school full time. I made that decision on purpose. I went to school part time so that I could be there. I wanted to be there for all the milestones that my daughter went through. I enjoyed every minute, loved being a mom. I think also because I became an aunt when I was in kindergarten. So just being around children, my daughter is the 49th grandchildren in my
Wow.
family. But you can see by this time I had lots of experience with babysitting
Yeah.
nephews. So when my daughter came, it was just like natural for me to change, a diaper, feed her. Where for my husband, he's like the opposite, comes from a smaller family, was never around children. So we always laugh about it. Like the first time he changed a diaper, it took him like 20 minutes. What took me was just like super fast.
Second nature for you, yeah.
Yeah, very second nature. So yeah, I enjoyed motherhood, and that's something I would want to tell moms is like enjoy every moment because it goes by so fast. And now that my daughter's going to be 18, I mean, me and my husband are looking at each other. We're trying to hold back tears because you just think back and you're just like, where did the time go? Where is our baby? Like she's not, I think as a parent, maybe you think this, you'll always think of your child as like your baby, even though so just cherish all of those little moments. And yes, I had struggles like sleepless nights or, dealing with teething or, those type of nights. But I think I already expected it. I knew it wasn't going to be a breeze. But just enjoying even those late nights, enjoying that, hey, I'm with my baby and giving her what she needs and the attention. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. The holding back tears thing. Actually, I had a moment last night where well, he's almost 4, my son, which is wild, but he have kind of like built him his own bed and he's been sleeping in his bed, but during the night he'll come out and like come, jump into our bed and cuddle with mom and dad. But yeah, last night he came and cuddled and I just had a moment where I looked at him and I just felt like he's getting so big. Like, where's my baby? And got kind of emotional. Yeah, so I resonate with that, even though he's not anywhere close to 18. In my mind, I'm like, he's already 18. He's moving out. Yeah, it's like he's moving into his own bed, and so that's a
It's huge.
different.
That happened several times. I mean, for me, even I think when our daughter did the same thing. You want them to be like, go sleep in your own bed. But then she would always like somehow end up in our bed. And I remember at first, I'm like, gosh, she really needs to sleep on her own. And then I think one night my husband just said, look, there's going to come a time where she's not going to want to do this. Let's just enjoy it while she does want to spend time with her mom and dad. So I thought of it. I had to like change my perspective and be like, oh yeah. So anyways.
Yeah. Also, I just want to take a moment too and say I had a mother who paused work and stayed home with us. Well, I was a firstborn, so like earlier she was working, and even when I was younger, like I had a babysitter that I would go to and she would go to work. But, shortly after that, when I got towards elementary school, she decided to take some time to be with the children and there were 5 of us. She took time away from work, raised 5 of us, and then as we were my younger siblings were going into high school, she went back to work. But I always think of the like juxtaposition of, I think it's, a lot of times people classify like, oh, are you a working mom or are you a stay-at-home mom? It's like all moms work, just not all are like paid. And also the experience is a little bit different. I think in my experience of having like leave time and baby bonding when I had my son, it never felt like enough, right? And it's still like sometimes I have days where I'm like, I should be with him. I shouldn't be dropping him off at school when he's this young. And there's that like guilt that factors into it. But on the flip side, I think there were probably many days where my mom, in all her years of staying home, was like, I could be doing so many things, but I'm here for, the foreseeable future. And I think there's that like push pull, right? Of like, how do I balance that? Maybe that like tug to be doing more with my life personally, but also like feeling like they're only young for this time period and I don't want to miss it. So just not so much of a question, but just something that came to mind for me is just like I hear both sides from my friends who are stay at home and my friends who are working. Like what are your thoughts or feelings on that?
I feel it comes down to just first of all, what is the circumstances of your family? Some mothers they need to work, for financial reasons or other things. But I think it's just one of those balances. I think if you're open with your children too, in those cases where if you are away from home, then the times that you're with your children really be 100% with your child so that they don't. And I've had this conversation actually with my daughter because as she got older, I was noticing there were moments where I was spending a lot of time at work and then I'd come back and I did feel like a disconnection, like, whoa, we're kind of like drifting apart. And that's where I would just talk to my daughter and be like, hey, does it bother you that I work so much? Like, do you feel like you have enough mom time, like with me? And that's where, I think just being open with your child too and letting them know your feelings that, hey, I struggle. I really want to be with you. But then I have these commitments that I have a career that I'm working. And that's where you can talk with them about things to do. So like with my daughter, we have always done like mommy daughter dates every month. She has asked, hey, mom, when you're home, can you just not talk about work? Just talk with me. So those are little things. And sometimes you get so consumed with work, when you come home, you know to turn the work life off because your mind is like, oh, I got to do this tomorrow and this, I have this coming up, or there's this big problem and you just keep talking about it over dinner. And I'm telling my husband. And so I didn't realize that until my daughter's like, I understand it's really important, but like, I only have this much time with you in the evening. So let's not talk about
Yeah.
work. So that was really helpful for me. And I was like, great. I needed to know that. I needed to know that I didn't realize I was doing that. So I think being open with your children too, because they can actually tell you too what they need.
Yeah.
So
They're smart and perceptive. So like what just a cool conversation that you were willing to be open with her and say like, "Hey, am I meeting your needs? Is there something that, we could do differently?" And she was like, "Well, actually, can we not talk about work?" Like kind of maybe helping you set a boundary there of like, my life and work don't have to always intersect. There can be like a line where I turn off a little bit. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, the other night my husband was putting my son to bed, and my son, we have like a kind of a routine on certain weeknights, and my son was like, "Mommy, you gotta go get dad. You gotta go read." Because I normally get to go read my book when dad is getting my son down for their bed. And I'm like, how do you know my routine? But
they
they're perceptive. Yeah.
They are. I would say do not underestimate kids. They're very observant and they do see like, what's going on. I think they understand more than parents think. Like, oh, they're just children. They don't know what's going on. But they really do. They may not know like details, but they do exactly what you just said. Like they pick up on those little things like the routines.
Yeah, and it wasn't something I'd vocalized. It's just like he knew that's what I go do at that time. I get like 30, 40 minutes to read my book. So love it. Okay, cool. So kind of shifting gears a little bit and talking more about as you progress through school and we're taking more classes, was there a moment that clicked for you where you were like, I really am liking what I'm learning here. I think that this could be a career for me and it's exciting.
Yes, absolutely. So when I first started school, again, I didn't have like a career in mind. It was just more like a bucket list. Like I've always wanted to go to college ever since I was 12. I don't know why. I don't know what I'm going to do. And when I first started, I thought like, oh, I'll just be an elementary school teacher because I'm pretty good with kids and the schedule will work out. I have a daughter, so that would be cool to like go to school together. And so that was my mind thinking. And then so I just started generals. When I took my first math class was when I was like, I love this. I really like this. I think I want to be a math professor. So I went down that whole route and really pursued that until I think towards the last couple of years, last like 2 years of college, actually Google came to visit. And because the math department is part of the computer science, I really had no interest in like computers or anything like technical. It was just like, nope, I'm just here for math. And because it's very, computers use lots of math, it's a part of that program. But Google came to visit, and it was a woman that came to speak. And I think that's where there was a shift. And so I am hearing this woman, everyone knows Google. This is like early or mid, like I'm trying to think what year, but this would have been like 2013, 14, around that time. So I'm sitting at, watching this woman speak, and it just kind of opened my mind to be like, there's more than just like, I could be a teacher. I could do something outside of like the norm. And computers was very like foreign to me.
Yeah.
But I think just hearing that, it was something new. It was something innovative. It was like, what is that? I want to do that. What's more to that? So there was like an internship. And I think that's what really kind of changed. Once I applied for the internship. I ended up being part of the on campus internship. I think technology is very innovative. They do things not like the normal corporate way. And that's what really changed my mind to be like, I think I want to do something like, I want to actually have a real career in this and not just be like, I'll just teach on the side when I feel like it, teach here and there. But that was the turning point for me.
Yeah, so cool. So there were some things that clicked and you got to see like, okay, I see that a woman can do this and these are some opportunities here that relate to what I'm learning, and that's just like a really cool example. And also I remember as we worked together, you were a huge proponent for hosting STEM events and getting girls involved in tech and hands-on and learning more about what they could do with their futures. And I remember like being present at those events, helping your husband move tables and like being like, yes, go Molly. But yeah, so really cool that you were able to bring that into your career as you took a job out of college and were continuing to be a proponent for other women too.
Yeah. And it happened organically too. I think just how that all played out was awesome. And I'm glad that I worked for at that time a company that supported that, and it was different ideas, very open to it. So I think that's another thing too I look for when you're looking for a company, is companies that align with more diverse thinking and things like that. So that was very important to me.
Yeah, totally. And it was also kind of an opportunity, I think, on my end too, in different types of events that I got to do in my role. I just think that it was like a phase of the company that was like very receptive to ideas, like whatever ideas you that would be cool, you could kind of do. So that was like early stage, portion of it, and like a benefit, I think, too, is like not only the way the company worked or how it approached things, but also like being in that early stage and being like one of the first people on the team. So very
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely. Yep.
Awesome. So as you kind of grew throughout your career, and even those early days too, were there challenges that you noticed? I know we talked about how like your daughter shared that it would be helpful to set certain boundaries with conversations at home, but maybe what other things popped up for you as you started working more and pursuing your career?
I think once I started working and I knew like, okay, I'm committing now. I work 9 to 5 job. It kind of set in that like, oh, I might miss things like volunteering in my daughter's class if they need something, or being what's it called? A chaperone on a field trip, or maybe I'll miss her performance when they're doing the Christmas performance. So that's where it started to like, whoa, I don't want to miss those things. So I had to be very intentional on which things I was going to join, and work with my husband too. Like, if I'm not there, can you be there to support her? It was a family effort too. Also, and I would talk to my daughter too. I would try to make everything that I could. If there was like a performance, like, I know you're going to have this Christmas performance, but I actually can't make it because I had this other meeting that I need to attend. But either daddy will be there, or we're going to have someone record it and I'm going to watch it. I think it was just always just being upfront if I wasn't going to make it, so that my daughter knew that my intentions, I really want to be there, but there's this that I'm going to attend. And then also making sure that on the work side, I did take off the necessary time to be like, hey, I know this is something it's really important to my daughter. I need to take time off for this. So just thinking ahead. But I think there's just that balance of, you really need to be intentional with when to support your child when they need you, and, when it's okay to miss something. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, what great advice. I think about just like some rules that I'm developing over time for myself. And one of the things that's always in the back of my mind is like if I miss this moment, is this something I can get back kind of thing? And obviously we can't get back the exact moment, right? But like in a way, is there someone that can be there for my child during that time where, it's like a similar occasion that I can make another, event. So that's similar. If I miss this moment, like, am I gonna miss it forever? And if that's the case, like if I really need to be there and I want to be there, then like I'm taking the time off that I need to. But on the flip side too, I had a friend recently share with me that when she or her husband travel for work, it's hard, but at the same time, they have a phrase that's make it worth it. And so when they're away, like they've committed to that time. And even though it might be emotional to step away for a little bit, it's like they're making that time worth it for them, for their career, for their family, and they're building something during that time too. So just being intentional wherever you are.
I love that. That's a good one. I'm going to take that.
But at least those little phrases sometimes can be helpful. As far as leaning more into that, like, okay, certain boundaries here, or making decisions when certain commitments come up and you have to go one way or another. Some people say there's no such thing as work-life balance, or it's like
Yep.
work-life harmony or work-life integration, or what does that all mean to you? What is that concept? How has it affected your life? How do you approach it? Any advice there?
Yeah. I think again, it just goes back to the communication with your family. Like for me, obviously my family's first. They do know I have a career, but I think just being open about it with them, with what's going on schedule wise. And then, like I said, being intentional if you're going to miss something or not, or you're going to make something, making them aware of it. And I do agree. I've heard both sides and I can go either way. Like there is no such thing as work-life balance, but then there is, you could have, there is a balance. So at the end of the day, it's like, it's life. I also like that it's not so perfect because I'm showing my daughter too that this is reality as much as like maybe the movies would make it show like, everything is just going to work out like it's perfect. But I think it's also been a neat experience for her to see too that like I know my parents support me, love me, they're there for me. They also, I love that they have their own lives, but they're trying to be there for me as well, like where I need them. I think it just shows them too that because eventually they're going to kind of step in the same position. And now that my daughter's older, now we've had this talk too. And we've always said, I hope through the past, she could probably name a dozen things that we did wrong as parents, but we're always like hoping like at the end of the day, like, did you get the unconditional love that you needed, the support, and just letting her know that this is real life. Like you're going to probably end up having to make the same type of decisions. And hopefully we probably didn't make it right every time. And if we didn't, we tried to communicate and talk about it and how can we make it better.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that approach. It seems like the way that you've approached things over the years is just like really open communication, and that first and foremost that things come up and it's like let's just talk about it. It's okay that we're like if somebody doesn't feel great about something, let's just talk about it and be open. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yep. I think communicate, it's so important. And especially with your children, I think, I don't know, maybe others will disagree, but I know for me and my husband, we've always wanted to be as much as transparent as we could with our daughter. That's appropriate. But I think it really helped because we also want her to feel like her opinions matter. She's just as a part of the family as we're all equal in this family together to make it work. We need to know where she stands and what she's feeling and what she feels about things. And sometimes it will sway us to be like, oh yeah, you know what? Maybe I won't take that work trip because, you have this and this going on. Or, you know what? Are you okay if I do, this is really important to me in my career. And it's just this balance. So I think communicating is so important.
I love that. I'm also curious if over the years your style and the way that you manage people or communicate with your team members has shifted, and kind of, similar to that example that I shared with you, how I went to set a meeting with you and I saw the transparency on your calendar. As you've had these learnings and realizations pop up, set boundaries or learn to communicate better with your family, is there something that's shifted for you too in how you communicate with your colleagues?
Yeah, I think parenting, because there's always that fine line when you're a mom. It's like you're the mother, you want to be their friend, but you're also their mom. So there's
Yeah.
like, you need to draw. Of course, I want to be the cool mom and, like, it's such a cool mom. But there's that line where it's like, yes, I'm best friends with my daughter, but I'm also her mom. And then I think in the work life, like with my coworkers, when I'm interacting with them, it's like, I'll get along, we can relate and work together and work that. But there's also a time where you need to be assertive, or like we have roles that we play. So as much as we want to be friends or everything to be nice, there is like that. You have to like draw that line of like, okay, but now we have roles and you need to do your part. I need to do my part. So, but I think parenting has, I don't know, it's helped me kind of not, because just me personally, I'm a people pleaser. I'm very, like, I just don't want to, I don't like to meddle in things. I don't like confrontation. So it could be easy for me to just be like, yeah, whatever you want to do, whatever that works. Parenting has helped me not be that way, like in the workforce where it's just, yeah, I'll just take on all the work and just say yes, 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 yes to everything. Or I think that's where parenting has helped me kind of step in and know when to push back and when to be a team player.
Yes, I love that. That's actually something that I've noticed a little bit more with myself as well since becoming a mother. I know I have a long way to go, but also I think I significantly was more of a people pleaser before having my son. And now there's like, I still am, polite, respectful, and like,
Absolutely.
kind, like genuine with folks, but it's like you know how to set a boundary line a little bit firmer. And also maybe situations where I didn't speak up in the past, I'm like, no, this is like something I'm gonna say something here.
Yeah. Well, I actually took a course from my friend. She taught a course at the University of Utah on assertiveness because I really struggled with it. I struggled with, you know, if I did something, but a bit credibility would go to someone else, and I
Oh,
just kind of
yeah.
let it like, let it slide by. It really
For the team.
yeah, like, "Yay, team," and, but I actually took a course on how to set boundaries, how to be comfortable saying no. Like,
That's
it's
amazing.
okay to say no, pushing back. I even read a book. I think I was gifted a book from one of our managers on um, tips that, like, it was like 100 entrepreneurs, or something. And one of the main things they said was they learned how to say no. And so that was also important. But to do it in my way, because I'm not that type of person. I'm usually like, no, like, I don't want to hurt their feelings. Or I had to learn how to do it in my way. Like, it was okay for me I could still be myself, me, but also be assertive, not aggressive, but assertive.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And it's cool too because having the experience as a mother, and I hear this all the time, is like, there's so many skills and assets that we learn from motherhood that we can take into the professional life, amongst other things like don't get me started with project management skills. We're just like all over it. Communication skills, and then the way that you've learned how to become more assertive in your way. And what rang true for me when you said that is like, I think of like, I'm dealing with a almost 4-year old. We also lovingly referred him as a three-nager. Um,
Yep.
there are just times where he's like not wanting to be cooperative, and I can say no or be assertive and ask him to communicate differently lovingly. I can say that with care, and like you said, in your way, in my way. If I'm looking at this child who I love so deeply, it's like, you care about your team members in a different way, but it's like they're human, you care about them, you want to treat them kindly. And so you can still say the right things, but in your way, right? Stand up for yourself and love it. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit then and talk about workplace policies. And you mentioned earlier in the conversation, being in supportive work environments and aligning with the right values, the right companies that are able to, offer you environments that adhere to what you're looking for, and also the opportunity to develop and advance in the way that you need. So, how has your experience being a working mom shifted the way that you look at those workplace policies and the way that you look at companies and how, you interview for roles? Like,
Yep.
I guess this is like another benefit of being a working parent is like you're able to maybe how do I say this politically correct? It's like zone in on this is not politically correct, but maybe like some of the BS that like we would let slide when we were not parents versus like being parents. Like what are those supportive policies and workplace culture aspects you look for?
Yeah, definitely right away if you're going to take time off or you're out of the office. Like that should be a clear understanding. I think also when you're going into a job, being very transparent on wherever you're at with your family life situation, just so it's out in the open and it's not a surprise later where it's like, oh, you didn't know I had a child and, or I have 3 kids or whatever it is. I think that should be very upfront at the beginning and they should know that, yep, have a family. They're very important to me. But also, it's weird because I know it's like, yeah, but then I don't want them to think that I can't commit because my family life is always going to come in the way. I think it's just important that they know upfront your family situation. So I think that's one thing. The other thing is I look for policies where they support mental health. They're supporting, I don't know, to me, it's a company that will tell me like, oh, if they're supportive of time off, mental health, that also tells me they support work-life balance, like they support family time, things like that. So I'm always looking for policies like that. Of course, I'm always looking at their healthcare plan, like what do they have medically? Are they supportive of, I'm not having children, but I do look at like how much time do they give off for maternal or paternity leave, because it gives me an idea of where they stand with supporting, especially if I have a family, you get
Yeah.
an idea of that. So and I think those are things, if that's, especially if you have young ones. Since my daughter's older, it wasn't as much of a problem, but if I had younger ones, I'd probably ask more questions of like, how do they support, time off? What's all of their health policies if I need to take time off? Or I just feel like the younger kids may get sick more, so you may be taking off more time. But just being upfront and looking into their benefits, their medical, what they support there, and how. And I would even ask in the interview, like, how currently do you guys support, coworkers with families? Just be upfront, like, or if there's a coworker who has a newborn, or just asking upfront what their policies are.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Yeah, what you said about looking, even though that you're not in a phase right now where you're having children, looking at the policy and seeing, do they offer parental leave? Because that policy is also indicative of if they support working parents in other ways.
Yes.
And usually, companies that offer parental leave have other supportive benefits that support employees in other ways with wellness and well-being, right? And even, I've heard of like or seen rather like certain companies that offer parental leave, they also offer like sabbatical, right? For
Right.
folks and that's like, wow, that's really nice. Or they'll offer, I saw one company that every year they would give $1,000 stipend for a trip of someone's choice, like wherever they wanted to go. That was just like, that would be time away for them to mentally recharge and then also have a life experience, right? That could benefit them, coming back into the workplace.
And I think I had to learn that later. I think when I first joined to the workforce, I was just so like, I need to prove that I'm such a good worker. So I went above and beyond, which is great. You should always go above and beyond. But I was doing it to a point where it was not healthy. Like it was
Mhm.
all of my time. And I did need to now I did it so much that it was like expected of me. And then I had to go back and reset the boundaries and be like, okay, I know I'm always available, but on the weekends, that's where it's like, I'm not available anymore. So yeah, looking at a company and how they support like their hours, and is weekend really a weekend, or do most people work on weekends? Just something like that. Cause you kind of get an idea of like, is this going to work out for me or not?
Yeah, and I think too, like also something that comes to mind for me is like companies having the trust in their employees and folks that they're hiring that, like in working parents, I've seen this a lot, is they're some of the hardest workers I know, right? Like they work hard 1,000% when they're at work, and then when they're away from work, they're still working. And so they're always working because it's
Yep.
like you're working with your kids, your family life, all of the dynamics. And so I feel like there should be that level of trust. And I think companies that offer those types of benefits, support, and workplace policies, like there's the recognition of, we're giving this to our employees so that we can retain great talent and also get really good work produced for us. And that trust is that, in return for these types of benefits, this culture, this workplace, this is what we're getting from these team members, and recognizing that like there's that trust there that will happen. And yeah, I think it's cool that you brought that up too, but also as someone in the workplace, recognizing when like you don't want to burn out. So, it's like quality work and show up fully, but also you don't have to be on 24/7 on Slack or whatever that looks like. Right? Yeah.
Yep.
So awesome. I think that's really good advice and just thoughtful perspective. But as we close, I am curious what gives you hope for working parents in the future?
I think what gives me hope is I feel like the dialogue has opened up more now in our generation. I've noticed a lot of think it's more, I think it's a topic that's more, what's it called? comfortable to talk about now. It's not where I think maybe in the past it wasn't so much. It was like, no, when you work, you just leave your family. You don't bring that up like this is work. Everything's about business. Like we shouldn't. But I think a lot of company, I think with remote work and like ever since COVID has happened, it's actually opened a lot of doors. Like more people have become more open about like the work-life balance with just working remote. So I do have hope in that sense because I feel like now the last several companies I've worked for, it's been an open conversation. Like it's not something that's like, how do I bring this up? How do I talk about, I feel like it's more receptive. And even amongst like not just females, but males too, as well. And especially because a lot of males are having children too. So I think they're starting to understand, oh yeah, there's this balance that has to happen with them even having newborns. So that's what I think keeps me hopeful is just the conversation is what's it called? The word I'm trying to say.
There's some more transparency happening, right?
And I think it's not like a taboo subject or something that you shouldn't talk about. It's more open to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like pre-COVID, even, early in my career, I think I wouldn't be comfortable talking about some of these topics, but now yeah. So I can't even imagine like when my mom was working. Yeah, it probably was just like 1,000% like you just go along with, day to
You
day, you don't say
can't
anything. Yeah.
really talk about anything else. It's just
Yeah.
like all business. And then maybe, if we're out later, you can talk about it. But I think it's just a lot more open now. And I think just culturally too, with social media, I mean, it's an open conversation. So I think that's what gives me hope is that it's a lot more receptive.
Yeah.
Oh my life.
And is there any other thoughts or advice or just words of encouragement you'd like to leave with fellow working moms who are listening to this?
I think first, like, you're not alone. I think a lot of mothers naturally are like, they feel like they have to do it alone or they're just doing so much. You're not alone and don't ever feel guilty. I think guilty, because I think it goes both ways. They either feel guilty that they're at work and they're not with their child, or like what you said, they're at home and they're wishing like I'm with my child, there's my dream just sitting there on the shelf. Don't feel guilty I think it's that guilt that kind of limits us and just don't feel limited. Like you can go, I think there's that balance, but you can be a great mother and a great career woman at the same time. And you don't have to choose one or the other. And that's the other thing. And that's what I found. Because I think sometimes it's like, oh, well, if I choose my career, then I can't have my family. I have to put my family on the back burner. Or if I have a family, then I can't do this. I can't. I think it's take the can't out of it and think of how can I want to be a mom and I really love this, whatever career or dream you're at. I really want to do this. How can I do both? Because it's possible.
I see that a lot too with people reaching out to me, friends, asking who haven't had kids yet. They're in their career and they're like, I really want to be successful, but I'm nervous. Like, if I start having kids, is that going to impede my success? Am I able to still do what I want? Can I grow? And I'm like, 1,000%. You can still do it. So I love your mentality. Like, how will this impact me? It's how can I do this
Yeah.
and moving forward with that.
And I think one thing too, mothers, you having a baby alone, I don't know how you felt, but you are amazing that you just brought life into the world. That alone is like a superpower to me. So I think it's like if you can bring a life into the world and raise that life, you can do what else can you do, So I think reminding yourself that like what woman, being a woman, it's powerful. So
So powerful. Well, thank you so much, Molly. It's been lovely chatting with you. And again, I just think your story and experience is amazing, and I'm grateful that you shared it with us today.
thank you so much, Kristlyn. I'm so grateful and honored, humbled to be here, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. That's a wrap on today's episode of Birth at Work. If our topic resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. Connect with me on social or via email. Your experiences and questions help shape future episodes. Remember, you're not alone in this journey of balancing career and family. Every challenge you're facing, someone else has navigated too, and every victory you celebrate, big or small, deserves to be recognized. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review. It helps other working parents find these conversations when they need them the most. And if you know someone who could benefit from hearing these stories, please share this episode with them. Until next time, remember, you don't have to choose between your career dreams and your family dreams. You're already proving that every day. Thanks for listening to Birth at Work. I'm Kristlyn Powell, and I'll see you next time.